We're recording.
CD is a type of optical storage used for storing files, typically music, video, images, or other things. Usually is just a temporary backup storage device because they're not very reliable. Basically, because they're not very durable. They can easily be scratched or broken and then just won't work because of the way the laser carves data into it, being through grooves in the reflective part of the CD, and it basically reads from there. And if the grooves are disrupted, they won't work. It also means it's only writable to once, and is then read only after because you can't just change what's physically inscribed into a disk. They're pretty portable though. They require a little power to operate, but they do require an optical disk drive, so you might need an external one. They're cheap. They usually cost a small amount for a decent amount of them. Like you'll get a pack of maybe 50 for like 5, 10 quid. And well, the data access speed is quite slow, and the storage is only 640 megabytes. A DVD is better compared to it, which is another type of optical storage. A DVD can store any kind of digital data as well, usually used for software, such as operating systems or just other things that require verification. Um, it also is used as another kind of backup device and used to store videos, music, images. A DVD holds a lot more data than a CD, so it's usually used to store films as well, as they're quite large files. And it's also as easily portable because it's the same dimensions. It just has a higher file capacity. Both writable DVDs types will cost between about 20 pence to 40 pence per disc. Uh, 50 discs would cost around 10 to £15 as well. A DVD player uses not that much electricity, so it's still a low power storage option. And honestly, you can also use an optical disc drive. They can only be written to once as well, and they are as easily scratchable and breakable, and they're not very durable. Has the same amount of data access speed too.
So the hard disk drive, it's the advantage of it is it has a large capacity for storing data and it's much faster than like the optical disk drives as Mal mentioned. It has like a persistent storage and can be easily replaced or upgraded. And however, the disadvantages of this is it depends upon the moving parts because with having the moving parts inside, it means it can be damaged easily and it consumes more power as a result of that. And it can make noise as well because of the moving parts inside. And also it has the read write speed is slower than RAM, so making it not as good. However, the solid state drive, the number one advantage of it is that it has over the hard disk drive is the speed of it. Since the solid state drive has no mechanical parts, it means that can be like between 25 and 100 times faster than your normal hard disk drive. And since the SSD has no moving parts, it means that if you drop it or like it gets rattled, it means you won't lose any data or you won't end up with a broken solid state drive. And the solid state drive uses silicon chips, meaning there's no need for the moving parts, making it more durable and more energy efficient as it doesn't have any moving parts to it. However, on the downside of that is there's only so many times you can erase and rewrite the data on solid state drive, meaning they don't last as long as your hard disk drive. also the solid state drives tend to be a lot more expensive than hard disk drives because of like the capacity and the speed of them. But also the capacity of the computers with solid state drives are typically 128 gigabytes to 480 gigabytes, whereas the solid state drives themselves can go up to 4 terabytes, but the device cost goes up considerably in relation to the SSD storage capacity. But overall, the most difficult challenge the SSD has over the hard disk drive is the data recovery. So if the controller fails, there's no way of recovering your data. So based on my experiences with the hard disk drive and the solid state drive, I'd say the hard disk drives are better.
Leading on from that, I have chosen two input. One of these is the keyboard, and these are supply remote computers, making them very convenient. But and uh, they're used for entering data in a fast manner. It makes it a lot easier for putting in numbers and words without having to write them down. And since they were created, there's been many advances in the technology, and we now have ergonomic and gaming keyboards, which allow the hands to be in a much more natural position than they originally were, due to the shape of the board causing possible repetitive strain injury. However, it's also very easy to make mistakes, and if you can't type as well, it can be more time consuming than, say, writing it down or uh, having someone else write it down. They also cannot be used for creating diagrams, and the disabled will find them very difficult to use due to the fact that it requires fluid movement in your hands. And my second input device is the mouse. These are ideal for use with desktop computers due to it makes it easier to move the cursor around the screen, and like the keyboard, it's usually supplied with the computer, so uh, you're not really missing one. New computer users are familiar with them and find them very easy to use due to their simplicity, and they work well in conjunction with the keyboards for entering that data. However, they do need a flat space close to the computer due to their wires if you get a wired mouse. Older style mice used to have balls in them instead of the nowadays optical laser that could become clogged and stop working as intended. Excessive use of the mice can lead to health problems such as repetitive strain injuries due to the movements of your wrist and not really the rest of the arm. And if you were to get a wireless mouse, the battery in them can wear out, and if that wireless mouse battery wears out, it's unusable until it's replaced.
When it comes to outputs, however, an example I gave is a speaker, which can only be used for audio outputs. It cannot output things such as video, and it can't print, for example. So speakers can be cheap. However, cheaper speakers will have drastically worse audio quality than other more expensive speakers, but there are still a large range depending on how much money you may or may not have, and they are required for a lot of desktop computers if the user does not have headphones or earphones, because otherwise, if they're using, for example, a monitor which doesn't have a speakers attached to it, you'll need secondary speakers like alongside for it to work. They can be wired and they can be Bluetooth. However, Bluetooth speakers require batteries, or they need to be charged depending on the which one you get, and wired obviously require wire management and space for them. My other example is monitors, which can output both audio and video data, but not all monitors can have the speakers to required to output audio data in them, like when they're bought. Using a monitor for a very long time can lead to eye strain, headaches, and difficulty sleeping. However, there is of course ways to deal with some of these using certain tools, apps, whatever. They're expensive and they tend to be very fragile as well. For example, if the screen breaks, then the monitor easily becomes useless. If you cannot see through it, you have to get a new one or have it fixed. Finally, they also tend to use very little power when it comes to LCD monitors, which are the most common type.